And we're back to another episode of Live Your Truth Now. I'm your host, Katie D'Andrea, and I have a very special guest, Finnian Kelly, with me on today. Finnian is an incredible entrepreneur. You'll hear through his charisma, how he shows up in this space, that he is truly a leader. He's someone that you want to follow. He's someone that you probably want to work with. So without further ado, Finnian, it's so good to have you on the show. Good to see you.
Thanks so much. I'm very excited and I love that little introduction. So thank you.
You're welcome. Well, I love that Finnian showed up. He goes, sorry, I'm late. I was just on the lake. I'm like, I love that you do that on a Monday. That's amazing.
Yeah, there's something special. So I always say that my favorite time of the week is a Monday powder day, skiing, and then being on Lake Tahoe on a Monday morning on a boat is pretty nice as well.
Not a bad second.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all, let's kick this conversation off with a little bit about who you are, what you're up to in this world.
It's a very complicated question because I'm a complicated being.
Yeah, that's true. So it's all about what's the narrative you're going to tell us today?
Well, I am originally Australian, moved over to
Where are you from?
Years ago. Grew up in Tasmania, actually, little island down the bottom. So where the Tassie Devil's from. So sometimes I get called that. And I moved to Colorado 5 years ago because I just love skiing. I'd come every year and I was always just like, I'm so happy here. Why don't I make my life around this? So I sold a company in Australia, turned another one remote and came over and started skiing 100 days a year, which has been pretty amazing ever since. And now I'm doing a big company called Intentionality, which is a way of life. It's a way to live life wonderfully and experience more peace, more joy, and more love. And I teach that. So I have digital programs and I do a lot of keynote speaking and I run entrepreneurial retreats. And that's just amazing. I get paid to share my medicine and to impact other people and just have a lot of fun as well, which is great.
I'll have what you're having. Favorite quote of any movie ever. So how did you get to do that? Like, that seems absolutely remarkable. The dream, if you will, for someone like me and probably a lot of people that are listening. How did you come to specialize in people creating that sort of time and passion freedom?
It was really just from my own experiences. I was very committed to live a life that fulfilled me and that wasn't the status quo, that wasn't part of social conditioning. And I just started living that way. And then people would start asking me to share it. And I started doing EO, Entrepreneurs Organization, and YPO, Young Presidents Organization. I would facilitate forum retreats. And I saw the impact it was having. And then over the last year, so I've done that for the last 5 years. And then the last year, I just went, it's time to go all in this. So I just sold another financial business. And now I'm just fully 100% intentionality. And it's really powerful because it's the first time that I have just done one thing in my life. I literally, when I went on this entrepreneurial journey, I did a typical thing what a lot of entrepreneurs do, and I started so many different businesses, and I realized it was fun, great, but I like to be focused in one area, and intentionality is it's so fulfilling and it's all encompassing. So I get to do things like speak and run retreats and create content and write books, and so I get the diversity, but it's all in one lane, which is something which a close friend and a mentor of mine shared. Like, you just got to stay in your lane, Finn, and you'll have such impact.
That resonates a lot with me, actually, because as I am an entrepreneur, I do a lot of different things, and I'm starting to realize the finitude of that. Like, it's not really serving me anymore. It was great to be a Jill of all trades until about last year, or this year even. And so I'm curious, like, how did you come to pick intentionality? Like, why that thing? And what was it like to give up the other things to be able to focus and go deeper, not wider with that?
So how it came about, I looked back in my life and it seemed like everything was separate. But I was like, no, I am intentional. Like, there must be a way that's linking all this together. And I looked through a lot of my testimonials from people I'd worked with, and they just kept referring to me. They were like, you're the intentionality guy. And it was consistent, and people were referencing it. And then after a while, I looked at that and I was like, okay, these are people I really admire. What's here? And I picked out this word intentionality and I put it up the top. And then I drew lines, and there was a line connected to everything, and suddenly my life made sense. And then I realized, if I just commit to this one word, I can get this variety, and I can experience all these different things that I love doing, but they all work to one area, one focus. And that was amazing. And to tell you the truth, I looked back in my life and I was like, where was I really enjoying things? Like, what was giving me most joy? And it wasn't building financial companies. It was the impact that I was having working with people. And then I was able to do it. And then one of those things happened that I managed to buy the intentionality.com domain off another company. It came with a trademark. And I was like, okay, this is the universe is clearly telling me this is my path. And I had to listen to that.
So what does intentionality not mean?
Intentionality doesn't mean living life aligned with social conditioning. It means just believing that you don't have choice. It doesn't mean living in the future or the past. It's doesn't mean that life has to be hard. All those different things.
I love that because when I grew up, my narrative was that like success is hard. It's hard work. It requires a lot of hours grinding. One must be almost miserable. It's like this self-martyrdom complex. And so when we had our first conversation, I was like, this man has got it. Like I want to be Finnian, or I want to be my version of Finnian, because you see it and you're consciously choosing above that. And I really admire that. I think that's absolutely remarkable. I think you're really changing the paradigm for me of what it means to be successful, whatever the hell that means in this day and age.
Thank you. That means a lot. And what I love
It's really
about, I,
cool.
I follow the Tao Te Ching a lot, and there's a concept in there called Wu Wei, which is all about this idea of doing without force. It's the idea of chopping wood with the grain, not against the grain. And and I realized that I look at my life, whenever I've just slowed down and not tried, I've had so much more impact. I've been able to create because I get in line with the universal flow in my own energy. And when these times a period where I start turning to fear, I start working harder, trying harder, I do matter to matter, I live in that 3D world, it's just not enjoyable. And the funny thing is I do destruction into my life. So I always have
Katie's
to
morning.
yeah, get back into the 5D world, get out operating the quantum, and all these stories that we have to work hard is not true at all. Like it doesn't mean you don't work, and it doesn't mean you're not creating, but it's not hard. It's fluid. It's wonderful. It's just like water taking the least resistance.
I was doing a psychosomatic healing session, I guess what it was. And my healer helped me find ease. And she was like, Katie, like, it's not about the effort. Like, it's just about releasing into you have everything it takes. And so it's very contrary to our modern narrative as an entrepreneur, right? Where we're sort of it's almost this like boulder on the back, walking up the hill type of thing. Like, it's supposed to be effortful.
It is. And then you look at sports people, they've understood this for a while. So Carl Lewis was revolutionary in the running world like 20 years ago. And they couldn't work out how he was so behind at the start. Like he was always so behind, and then he would win. And they looked at him and they saw what would happen was that as he was coming out of the gates, he was just so loose, and he was just getting down, and he was just getting into this flow state where everyone else was tense and they were wasting this energy. And that's how he started winning all those races. And that can be applied with so much sport. You look at what do swimmers do? They just jump up and down, they're getting all loose and flexible.
Creepy arm looseness.
Yeah, they just with it, and then they become one with the water. So why is it that we think that we have to work hard? It doesn't make sense.
Puritans.
Yeah,
Blame it on them.
yeah.
So I'm curious, like, what this journey's look like to, I don't know if I really like this word, but your awakeness. What has that look like, and what are some of your routines or your rituals that you do every single day to maintain your lights on state?
Great. So I talk a lot about in my journey, and I'm actually writing a book right now about what happened. Like the first part of my life, in a weird way, I was losing my way. It's we have some trauma at a young age. We then put protection mechanisms above us, and we forget that we are divine beings and we're amazing and we're unlimited and we're abundant. So you go through this life and you go on the success train to try to create a life that makes you feel safe and think that you'll bring more love into your life. And that ended up being a really great life. I was married. I was living in a ski resort, skiing 100 days a year. I was financially free. I had everything that I needed. But the problem was that the hole was just the hole that was always there. I thought would be fulfilled by these things, and it just got bigger because that's what naturally happens when money is a magnifier. So when you take money out of the equation, you now have to just face the things that are really in you. So that ended up in a divorce, and that was a very confronting time. So that was 4 years ago. And even though I did a lot of spiritual work before that, that was definitely the catalyst for my accelerated growth. And I ended up walking the Camino de Santiago pilgrimage, which is a 500-mile
That's
pilgrimage
beautiful.
to Spain. And really through that process, I found my way again. And so that's the discovery period, is finding your way. And then to keep your way is exactly what you said, is that you, just because you found your way, you need to understand that it doesn't stop there. You can, if you find your way, but then you take your eyes off and look left, you can completely get off your way again. So every day I have a daily practice, and if you think you're too good for a daily practice, I just look at people like Dalai Lama. He's the most spiritual being in the world, and what does he do every day? He meditates for hours, and he has a practice because he knows the human life, the situations we put ourselves in naturally will take us off center. So every day I get up, I smile first thing in the morning just to remind myself that it's a wonderful day.
It's
And
awesome.
then I drink some water. I scrub my tongue with a tongue scraper to
Got
release
it.
the toxins that have built up in the night. I then do a little energy clearing session, which is basically try to get my energy aligned again, which is just a series of tapping and rubbing on my body for about 5 minutes. And then I do a 60 to 90 minute meditation each morning. So
Wow.
I generally do a lot of Dr. Joe Dispenza's work, but sometimes I just do Vipassana as well. So I go on that journey. I do some pineal gland breaths where I bring up the cerebral fluid for my spine and activate and release DMT. And then I'll journal for a little bit, and I feel pretty wonderful at that point. And then I'll either get into some creative work, because I'm very creative in the morning, writing or producing content, or I'll go for a workout, which is really wonderful. So there's sort of my morning routines. Yeah, throughout the day, I have a regular breath practice. So I always just remind myself that I'm alive, and if I'm getting too much in the head, I drop into my heart center, especially before any connection meeting. So I did a bit of heart center before I came here. And in the evening, I will generally do a flow checkout. I have this intentionality flow checkout, which is the end of the day to try to turn off my operating system, just like we do with the computer. I just do a little cleanse and just go, what am I proud of today? What do I need to focus on? And then enjoy my evening, do some journaling again, read a book, and go to bed. It's pretty wonderful. I spend a lot of time in nature as well. That's a daily practice. So I'm always in nature. I ground. So I'll lie down on the ground. I put my feet in dirt and allow the electromagnetic field to just run through me, which is very healing as well.
I love that. That resonates a lot with me. My morning practice looks very similar, except for I probably do 30 minutes of meditation, not 90. So I'm curious, for those of you who don't know Joe Dispenza, this man is absolutely incredible. And what the meditation is helping you access your desired future state. So using, I would say, the science, the art, and the magic of manifestation to help prime your brain into a reality that's a potential reality that you're then calling to you faster through visualization and like emotionally experiencing that state. So if you should all look him up on YouTube or somewhere. I mean, I'm a big fan. So I'm curious to see what your visual. I mean, I have like 3 of his books. What are you visualizing right now? What are you calling to you?
So it's interesting. I am in a state that I have wanted my whole life, and I've only just realized this. I've been craving it my whole life, and it's peace, a state of peace. And that means I'm very in the present moment. I'm happy with myself. I'm happy with my life. I'm celebrating my trauma. My trauma is my medicine,
Yeah, I
and
want to go into that in a little bit.
really enjoying that place. So it's interesting. I'm I'm actually not trying to do too much visualization right now. Now, I still have a visualization practice. One of my products is the Intentional Path, which is a visual display of what you want your life to look like. So I still do that, but I'm not so focused on the future right now. I feel like I've got myself in a state where I can really enjoy the present, and really what I'm probably looking for in the visualization is to keep in this place of peace and joy and love and a place of freedom, and just keep reminding that. So I actually have this saying right now, which is latch, which is a love, abundant, confident, and humble. And that's what I'm really trying to live each day. And then I go latch onto the divine. So the divine's the final bit. So when I do walking meditations, I'm just replaying that over and over again. And then different things come up. Every time I do a walking meditation, I visualize, what does love mean? And sometimes that's like, oh, me being a dad, being a really great friend, being a great partner. Abundant could just be that I'm like giving money away. Confidence just in the delivery of my message with intentionality. And humble is just knowing my strengths. So that it's not about just hiding your strengths, it's actually knowing my strengths, believing in it, and then just being a service to other people. So that's how I think about that a lot.
There's just such a big smile on my face for those who can't see me. I'm like, this man has got it. And I love that you said it's not about hiding your strengths, because I'll speak in the first person. When I live in my strengths, I naturally illuminate everyone else around me, and I give them permission to do the same. And so it's this total bullshit belief when people are like, oh no, I have to almost like reduce myself to the least common denominator.
Yeah, it's false humility. It's actually a lie. You believe you're being humble when you shy away and you deflect people's affirmations and their confidence, and it's actually very selfish when you do that to someone, because
And disabling.
it's a gift from them. Like, for the fact that they've had the courage to share this with you, don't just deflect it back. Marinate it. I teach a lot of people about this when they receive an affirmation. Just sit there and say thank you. That's all. So we have a nightly practice after dinner, another ritual where whoever I'm with, we do affirmations about the other person, and we just do it randomly. This is one of the tools that I'll share with you afterwards about how to have these type of dinner
I
conversations.
love that.
And the only thing you're allowed to say is thank you. You're not allowed to rebut it. You're not allowed to deflect it. You're not allowed to add on to it. You just got to say thank you, because when you say thank you, you then allow it to marinate through you. And rather than being in the head, because that's where we generally are when we receive it, we allow it to flow through us and activate something into us, and it increases our field, and it's an absolute gift. And that's why when we play to our strengths, what happens is our field lights up, then our field, which is energetic field around us, interacts with other people, and it lifts them up. So it's our service to be the light, because then your light impacts other people's light, and then their light goes on and impacts other people's light, and then that's where we have this ripple effect. And that's why it's incredibly powerful. A few intentional people who are aware of their light, aware of the energy, can have major effects. There's studies of what happened when a group of people meditating near the Palestine and Israeli border, they did it for a year, and in that 1 year, the amount of deaths, amount of like bombs, everything dropped, dramatically reduced, because their fields were impacting other people's fields. So if more of us do this practice, this is the whole idea. If you want to change the world, you just change yourself, and then that naturally has a ripple effect.
When I hear things as true as that, my eyes water or I get the chills, and I just got both of them. Yeah, like it is amazing to me. And this is actually, I want to have a conversation with you about this. Like, this is the way I live my life. And a lot of people from my past communities aren't necessarily here yet. The people I consciously choose and welcome into my life now and every single day are just as my vibrational state and how I'm showing up and what my intention is. But there's a lot of people from my university or my past job or anywhere prior to that don't get it. And I say that with quotes. So tell me about how you work with the people that aren't fully on this plane or waking up yet and have this awareness, and what it's like working with them, or maybe you don't work with them.
Hmm.
But yeah, how you sort of operate and navigate this field of consciousness in your work.
So it's one of the challenges of, I suppose, going through your spiritual awakening through your path is that then you start, it's interesting, like the ego can sometimes grab onto us and go, look at me, I'm superior than these other people. Why don't they get it? And it's a natural process. Don't beat yourself up about it. You just need to have that awareness that this will be part of the process. And what happens is often there's conflict in those relationships because we're just like, why can't they get it? And we have this expectation of them. And as soon as we have an expectation of another person, we're lowering their vibrational frequency. It's unfair. They don't know it, but they feel this effect, and there's a judgment almost being put onto them. And I have done this firsthand myself. I've done this with my family. I've done this with my friends. And after a while, just seeing this, I was looking at this and like, who am I hurting? I'm hurting myself because I couldn't enjoy being around them. So I just went, well, this doesn't work for me. I need to change this. And I started realizing that what I had to give up was an expectation of anyone else. And I would just go and be with them and just be in my light force, be in my energetic state, and just share little things about myself. A lot of the time they wouldn't ask, but sometimes I'd get a little window and I'd just share something. And I started noticing that people would grab onto little things and I'd start being a bit more open. And that's what I realized was that when I become more open, other people become more open. So that's definitely how I work with people, even in my own life, but also how I work with others. Is just say like, this, you don't have to do this. It's a way of life. It's an opportunity, and it could give you more peace, more love, more joy, more freedom. And you don't have to go all in. You can just do one little step, one little action, and you change. That's what I love about intentionality. Is it's not a destination. Intentionality is a way of life. You can take one thing that I've shared today, and that will be starting your life of intentionality. And then it just starts having a snowball effect. It's like, be easy on yourself. So that's definitely how I work with them. And I connect to them on a soul level. And I just really, I don't see their personality. I drop in heart to heart and I connect, and something activates in them. They start feeling a little bit of permission to open up. And I feel like that's probably one of my favorite things about myself is I really don't judge. Like I naturally have sometimes, but you can come and share something with me and I'm just like, I don't really care. I do care. Like I care so much, but I don't care. And that's something magical, is that nothing shocks me. Like we're humans. We're incredibly creative. We're incredibly creative with the destructive things we can do with ourselves. And all I want to share with you is that it's okay to make mistakes and it's okay to feel this way. And we can start doing that. We release people of shame. And when we do that, then they can start moving through it. They can start letting go of it.
That's a beautiful trait, being able to hold that container for people to be seen and be self-expressed.
Mm-hmm.
I bet you get that. I get this a lot. I never tell anyone this. I've never told anyone this. I can't believe I'm telling you this. I'm like, and like you, like the way I listen is there's from a skin level to a bone level to a blood level to a soul level. And so in my coaching, I play around with that. Like right now, just listening to you from like my soul level, and I was just like we're not the same, but we are the same. Like I just see so much. Like it just feels so right to be in conversation with you. So
You.
for those who are like, what the are they talking about right now? Like these people are absolutely on a different plane, which perhaps we are. Who knows? Doesn't really matter.
And the great thing is that saying that you said we are the same, and we are. And that's where I just encourage people is it's like, if I can do this, you can do this. Because we all come from the same source. Like we all have this ability. I actually don't believe we have an original thought in our body. Like it's
I
not
agree.
ours. We're
They're just
collecting it from consciousness, and we're contributing. And that's why we see when there's an innovation, it often happens at the same time in the different sides of the world because they're both tapping into the same source and they have this connection and they're listening. So I just share that with people because people sometimes look at me and they're like, it's unreachable, it's too far. And I'm like, yeah, it's not. like tap in. And that's the great thing. Like I love this concept. Like I love love. Like I am a lover, and I just illuminate. Like I just love to just project it out. But I realized part of my magic is that you can't learn to love in this lifetime. Like it's too short to truly learn how to love. So I have to learn to love through other people's paths. So when I'm in my groups of men, and like I was just in the men's journey on the weekend, I got to absorb all the paths that they've chosen, and I could see that, well, that path doesn't really work for me. So I don't have to go down that path. I can learn how through their experiences. And I started looking and I realized, that's wonderful. I just soak it in. And that's why I've always had so many older people in my life, because I've just soaked in their energy and their life force. And I know when I'm going to be a dad, I am going to be 10 times better because I've watched all these people, and I've just absorbed what they've done. And that's taught me how to love more.
What I love what you just said is like you really just described the light side and the shadow side of teachers and mentors. The shadow side is being like, I'll never ever be able to achieve that, right? Like that person's so far down their path that there's no way I'll ever make that up in this lifetime. And the light side is being able to use their learnings, their lessons, their wisdom, their love, and be able to like live in that to be able to fuel oneself.
Yeah, it really is. And there's times where you can work with a teacher and they become so powerful and so impactful on you that you start creating a dependency on them. And you can start thinking that I can't do this without that person. And it's a really interesting moment, because it's a fine line, because you do want that sort of connection, because means you're committed, you're growing in. But at the same time, as soon as you think that you need something external to do something internal, you're off the path. So I definitely experience it myself sometimes when I'm coaching people or teaching. As soon as I see that connection's gone too far, I go, hang on, like you don't need me for this. Like all I'm doing is opening up something that's inside you already. And that's where the guide is just a facilitating your knowing that's already there. So I've done that myself personally. I've got very attached to a teacher before, and it was a challenge to break free of that. But that was also part of the journey that I needed to experience as well.
Yeah, I call that for me healing codependency. So let's talk about it in terms of entrepreneurs and small business owners and listener or leaders that are listening to this podcast. How do you, or how would you, or how do you help them find their own sort of inner wisdom and teacher within them? And rather than going out, right, these are people that are generally working by themselves. What does that practice look like to go within?
Start with the breath. I really just focus people to start with just a simple practice of breathing, and then breathing in and out of the heart. We've become addicted in this Western world to the intellect. Now, the intellect's important, but it's always lagging. It's always secondary. It's helpful in certain moments, but if we give too much power to the intellect, we're not going to enjoy this life. We're not going to be in line with the universal flow. So by getting people to drop into their heart, it opens up their right brain, a feeling brain, and the right side feeling brain, and they can start connecting, and there's just this intuitive intelligence there. It's just incredible how much there is there. So if we can start opening that up, then they can just start making decisions through this way, and then they can use the intellect to back it up, but they're not driving with the intellect. So that's the start. And then by doing that, then I can start asking them, like, what is it that they're feeling and what is it that they want to feel? And when we break it down to be that simple, most people are very similar. They want to feel some sense of peace, some love, some joy, some freedom, just like these great driving feelings. And then we can go, okay, well, how can we actually create this in your life? Because you are a creator. How do we bring this into your life? And when we focus on the feelings first, it now enables possibility. It's not set on, well, I have to build a $10 million business to feel this way. It's, I want to feel this way. And that could actually be fulfilled by a small business. Maybe I don't need to go down that scaling path. And then it gives you more confidence in the direction you're going. So that's really the core work. It's all about the feelings. And then there's lots of different ways where I get people to work through their trauma and then visualize forward, and then you can create this life for them. which is pretty powerful. But it's about getting them out of their head, dropping into the present moment, and just allowing what shows up, and listening, and seeing what is it that these beliefs, these limiting beliefs, have been driving certain thoughts and then driving behaviors, which have then been resulting in a feeling, which then reinforces the belief. So we've got to break that closed feedback loop and put a new variable in.
You know what I find fascinating is emotions. Like I'm so centered on emotions in my work and in my life. And when I was younger, I used to think, oh, I'm an even keel. Like I got this all under control. And then I was like, when I started to really wake up, I'm like, what am I doing? I am like really chopping the human experience in like not even in half, less than that, right? Like I was totally excluding the poles. I didn't want to feel anything that was uncomfortable. And so in my waking up journey, it's all been about discomfort and like leaning in and inquiring and being with the things that are challenging. And through that process, I've exposed myself to so many emotions that I have never felt before.
I love that you've discovered that. I love it. You're so right. So we think being calm the whole time is great. It's a
Everything's
protection mechanism.
good. You know,
Yeah,
I'm easy.
and it doesn't
Such a
serve.
lie.
If you look at karma through like Indian heritage, people think karma is like a bad event happens and it's like, oh, well, I deserve this. It's my karma. It's not actually true. Karma is all about action. Like Satguru talks about this a lot. It's action, and it's about when in the present moment dealing with what is coming up right there. That's karma. It's experiencing these different emotions. And as you get further on your spiritual path, spirituality, what could take 6 months of this slow, numb pain can actually come through in 10 minutes. And it can be the most violent an experience. And you're just like, I'm regressing, I'm having a breakdown, what's happening? But no, it's actually because you're getting so strong on the spiritual path that it can flow through you a lot quicker. So we actually need to be celebrating these type of emotions and going, oh, great. Yes, I'm feeling anger or I'm feeling sadness. Yes, bring it on and release it and then clear it up out of us. Because what we're doing is we're bringing up something which is already in us. Emotions, we all have them. We just have to suppress them really, really well. And then when we allow the emotions to come up, they come up from the subconscious, and then we consciously feel these emotions, and they're feelings. That's the difference between feelings and emotions. So we bring it up, and that's the process, the spiritual process. Now, we don't need to know why. We don't need to analyze it. Don't allow the intellect to come in and go, why am I feeling anger? You just got to get it up out of you. There's an incredible process, which I'm a facilitator in, called emotional clearing. Emotional clearing, look it up. It's remarkable how powerful this is. And there's facilitators out there who can guide you through this process. It's east meets west. We describe it as a positive experience of negative emotions. It's positive if you are consciously choosing to bring them up. That's why it's positive. And then we release them out of us. And you just don't have to understand. Sometimes it's not even your energy. It's someone else's energies come into you, and you spend all this time wondering why, and you go down this path which doesn't serve you. So release it up out of you, and then it's great. So now you can be taught this process as well. And I do this regularly throughout the day. I just go through these steps, and I can get through an emotion rises up, and I can deal with it in 5 minutes. So then it doesn't cause a week of destruction like it used to.
Yeah, I love that. And the energy emotion, or that's how I frame emotions, is just energy and motion. We're all just energetic beings, right? And so a lot of my work has been around demeaning all of these emotions. I used to be like, oh, I'm angry. Oh, that's bad. I used to have a lot of judgment around it. And now I'm like, oh, interesting. Curiosity, anger. Where's that coming from? And I do a lot of somatic practices so that the energy doesn't get stuck, because that becomes tumors, that becomes illness, that becomes sickness, that becomes, I mean, who knows, right? There's, so many good books. What is it? The Body Keeps the Score.
Yeah, it is.
It's a
And
fantastic book.
this work as well. It's like it all starts in the field. So by the time it's got into your body as a disease or an injury or a tumor, it's already been in the field for a long time. And this is why a lot of modern day medicine, it's so focused on the symptom. And then they chop out the cancer, but they didn't do anything for the psychological connection. And that's why it comes back. So yes, modern medicine is amazing for so many things, but we've got to combine it. And we've got to bring it
Like
in and
systems thinking.
clearing the field, heal the field, and it's all just energy. And then we can release it. And this is why we see people literally when we do this work, we do co-healing, like healing for group people like by energy in the fields. We just beam so much love into the fields, it changes the pattern, and then literally illnesses, tumors just disappear because it's not in the field anymore, and then the body responds.
I agree. I'm like all about this. So before we tune out or tune off, I want to talk about trauma and you saying trauma is my medicine and what that means to you and how it shows up in your work. Because most
So,
people would be like, trauma, stuff it down. Once
mhm.
again, let's just be more sick. I mean, I know countless of people like that. So
Oh, and I was
trauma is
definitely
your medicine.
myself. I was one of them as well. But eventually, at some point, you have to face it, and that can be very confronting. Like the last 4 years has been a very confronting time in my life, and the more I've got into this place and I've worked with my trauma and I've got to this place of this peace, I just had this realization. I'm like, the reason why I can help so many people is because I've had this trauma and I can relate and I've had this experience. So that is my medicine. We all keep a bit of medicine in us, and that medicine is what I can part on other people. And that's really amazing. Like I get to impact and help a lot of people. And I wouldn't have been able to do that if it wasn't from trauma. And it actually pays for me, pays for my life as well. And I have an incredible life. So that's where I'm like, I celebrate the trauma. You suddenly realize that all of it had to happen. It was it was wonderful and it happened for me, not to me. And then it just allows
Mm,
you to let go and forgive and release. And then you have this compounding effect where it's like, I love it all. Now, it doesn't mean that it wasn't hard, and it doesn't mean like I would have loved not to have gone through it. I'm completely, some of the things I had to go through, I don't want to go through that. But I now can use it as a way to create rather than being a victim of my life. I can do it as a place of love, which is powerful. And then every time I do this, I get more and more medicine in me as well because it starts building with the power of it.
and that humans that are listening is the power of defining your narrative on your terms. Like, there's been so many valleys where I've been blaming myself and shitting on myself and making all these terrible stories about like what this contraction means. And so I've gotten so much better at just being able to be with that contraction and actually saying, wow, thank you so much like for giving me this gift, for building my empathy, for building my understanding, of expanding my capacity to be able to heal this in other humans because now I know what it's like. And so I love that you said that.
And that's what intentionality is all about. It's accepting the present moment as is and living in this place so then you can create an extraordinary future life. That's what you do. When you're in that present moment, you confront things, you deal with things, and everything that we do is always created in the now. So we create the future in the now, and we do this work, and it opens things up, and suddenly you're in a different way of life, and you're like, wow, I had no idea that I could get here, and it all started with a small little accepting moments in the present.
So let's talk quickly about planning for the future as an entrepreneur or a leader. And because that's, okay, one more question, I promise, before we sign off. This is so good. I want to talk quickly about planning for the future as a leader or an entrepreneur and anxiety. Because anxiety is the fear of the future, it's the future tripping. So, how do you stay present yet plan for the future effectively and stay grounded in that?
Yeah, so there's a path of strategy. Strategy is looking at like where you want to go, like first visualizing where you want to go. And you do that in the present moment and you start getting really connected, you feel it and you release chemicals so your body actually starts feeling the creation. The body can't tell the difference between something actually happening or you imagining it. That's what's wonderful, and that's where imagination can be really powerful. Just like memory can be powerful as well. You can use these experiences in the future. But if we get too attached to the past or the future and get too addicted to imagination and memory, we're never actually going to be able to like live in the present moment and really create possibility. So we get that visualization and then we start looking at strategy. We're like, okay, to get there, what are some possible pathways? How do we set ourselves best up for success to to go down that path. And then you bring it back, and then you surrender and you go, what do I need to do now? And it is, what do I need to do now to focus on that? What are the activities? What are the daily habits, the daily rituals that will get us there? When we put these arbitrary goals, these numbers, they can be really limiting. One, you might have like just underestimated your own potential and your own creativity. So then you actually underperform, or it becomes a real demotivator because we're like, oh, we said we were meant to be here and all we're measuring here and we're not there, but we're not seeing the actual build up effect of the daily habits. So I really believe like these numbers that we throw out there can be a real disservice for us. Everything you reach the goal by doing in the now, the daily habits. So just get more attached to that. And then if you see that you're not getting closer to those numbers that you want to get there, then you go, okay, we might be on the wrong strategy. Let's just pivot and let's change. But don't get so attached to the destination. Allow some things to flow up. And when we do that, we allow creativity, we allow possibility. It's really wonderful. And it alleviates that anxiety. Anxiety is just so fearful of the future. But the future hasn't happened yet. And when is the future? It's always going to be the now. So if you're always living in the present moment and taking action, the future is going to work out for itself. It really does. So it's a sign if you're getting into that place with, and everyone has some form of anxiety generally. It's not something to be bad at, but I do, there's a difference between stress and anxiety. Stress can be helpful. It's when we push ourselves to limits, to then growth. It's coming up against ourselves. But anxiety is when we've now like gone so into the story and we're worrying about the future and becoming addicted to literally, our narrative. That's not serving us. So breathe, drop back into the present moment, and you will naturally feel that anxiety release.
I wish I could drop my mic, but then I'd have no mic. Mic drop, everyone. I love that. Like, set your vision, make your plan, take consistent action, observe, adjust as necessary. Mm-hmm. And so for those that are listening, I highly recommend listening to the episode with Chris Chopiak, who is my boss at Arlisol Visualize Innovation, because we are visual practitioners and we literally draw out our plan as it's happening, therefore creating a vision that you can live into and then adjust from there. So Finnian, I'll send it to you because I think you'll absolutely love that episode.
Sounds great. Thank you.
All right. Before we sign off, I love to do this last thing. So if the listener could only listen to this part of the conversation, what is the one thing that you want them to take away?
One thing that I'd want you to take away is that intentionality is a pathway to a new life, an extraordinary future life. And you can create it. You are the creator, and really anything is possible. And it can feel so magical when you live this way.
That's good. I think my takeaway is, this whole episode, and I think the power of living in your own grace. And what that means, how to preserve it through ritual, how to embody your own light, how important that is. Yeah. So where can people find you, Finnian? Because I guarantee you people are going to be reaching out.
Thank you. So I've actually created a link for you. If you go to my website, which is finiankelly.com/podcast, there's some really cool free tools that I discussed today, and you can get there, and then you're on my website anyway, and you'll get on my email list, and then you can find me on social media. That will start the path for you. That's the best.
Sweet as. That's more Kiwi, but it's been such a pleasure. I have absolutely loved having you on the show. You've been such a gift, and I know this episode is going to really impact people on a profound level.
Thanks so much, Katie. I've loved it as well. You're a divine being, and you're doing great work.
Thank you. Me too. I think we've both been smiling this whole time. It's just been such a joy and such a pleasure. All right, y'all. Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode with Finnian. He is amazing. Another special shout out to our sponsor, Arlisol Visualize Innovation. They do awesome work helping you get your strategy, create an action plan, and be able to achieve those really big goals with confidence and enthusiasm. Please share this episode with someone that needs to listen to this episode today and share the love. Peace out, everybody.